Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we come together and talk about an anime like we're in a book club with that kind of format. And then we turn our discussion over to you and the listener in our comment sections to take what we begin and make it better. Fill us in. Tell us what we're wrong. Tell us what we're right. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. That's the format of the show. And to do it, I need the help of my co-host. First off, with his anime choice, to let you know his taste in anime when we review this one.
I remember this time.
He's the yin to my yang. It's Jeremy.
I'm the feminine one? Okay.
This got weird real
guess.
fast.
If you have to ask, then yeah.
Oh, I guess. Oh, okay. So my pick is Gantz. There are so many similarities, right? Like you were talking earlier about how just having everybody on an island means that you can have this infusion of lots of different characters. Gantz. Right there. You know, you got all these people that are dead. Well, what if more people die? Oh, they're there now. Awesome. And also, you know, you never know which characters are going to live and die. It's just really good, and the stakes are just really high. Yeah. So Gantz, if you can stomach the violence, and it's got a couple sex scenes, it's really worth watching.
What is this? Also, quick note. The show just started. I know we do a pre-show, but you can just steal my idea. You don't have to tell people they missed out on something. Just take it. It's fine.
Oh, well, no.
It's so weird to say you previously said, but we've been rolling for like 2 minutes.
No, I thought it was a good idea. Give credit where it's due.
All right. We also have the wing to my wang. It's Jason.
Okay, I love that.
I prefer number wing. That's a deep cut.
I don't know that one.
Anyways, two
people are clapping right now, right?
well, no, it's pretty popular show in Britain from the early 2000s. Anyways, my pick this week is going to be Akame ga Kill.
I like it.
I really like that anime. I know some people thought it got a little cheesy at the end, but I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
And my name is Troy, and that was Jason's chair squeaking, I promise.
Don't worry about it.
And my anime pick, I'm going to pick Jujutsu Kaisen, because the next season has been out. I've been watching it. We reviewed the first season. I really liked it then. But, you know, a shonen with horror themes, that seems to be very popular these days. And I'm liking, I finished the flashback part, and now they're on to back to the current plot. But Jujutsu Kaisen, yeah, that's a good one for me.
Did they do the flashbacks during combat, or did they?
They did an arc of back when Gojo was in Jujutsu school, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The mission where everything went wrong, kind of thing.
But they didn't do it while people were waiting.
Nope. It was just straight up like, hey, what if this show was taking place in a different period of time, and then we'll jump back later.
That's cool. I like that.
What do we do next? Introduce the host, do preamble, anime taste example, non-spoiler review of...
Oh, yeah.
We've done this before, by the way.
Yeah, we haven't even told them what anime we watched. We watched Hell's Paradise. They probably know that because they clicked, and it's in the title. But we watched Hell's Paradise, which has a Japanese name that I'm not going to try to say. So, now with our non-spoiler review, Jeremy will take it away.
This is a really cool anime where a bunch of criminals and... Oh, wait, no. It's not a description. It's a review. Yeah. So I really liked it. I thought this was really cool.
We have done this before.
I know. It's going to be a great night.
One of us took a week vacation though and threw everything out of whack.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, I see. I see what it is.
Blame you. So I really liked it. This is what I'm looking for in a shonen. Give me some kind of really strange, weird even, alien environment and tell your story there. Because I think in most shonen that I've seen, at least, the environment is just so relatable, or it's something that I've seen so frequently. This doesn't do that. It plays with some really interesting ideas, and it ties it to the theme. So I know Troy's gonna like that. And and it's got so much complexity. And the characters, they're good enough. But to me, like, the real star is the environment, the island, the idea.
All right. Jason, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed this anime. One of my favorite things about it is the philosophy. And like Jeremy said, give me a shonen where not only do I care about the characters, but like there's some stakes. There's some gravity to the actions of the characters. Not only is the location fantastic and nearly a character of itself, but it's pretty clear that the main characters are not going anywhere. But anywhere besides those, anyone else besides those two, I have no idea if they're going to die or not. And that's just fantastic storytelling. So yeah, I'm really excited for the next season because it ended too soon. It was one of those. So yeah, very happy with it.
For me, it got me at the end. I really liked it. I agree with Jeremy about like the locale, just the ideas it was presenting was really good. I do think the shonenness of it is its weakest element. I think it actually drags the show down a little bit. Even though I have really nice things to say about the shonen parts, I do feel like there are certain parts I felt were clunky in the storytelling, and I felt like it was because it was trying to fit into the shonen mold. This is a manga that come from Shonen Jump, so it has to be a shonen, and I did feel trying to fit those molds at occasion at times just felt off from the rest of the story, which is so good. Concept is great. I think the weakest part is the characters, and we'll get into that when we talk about the characters. There was no one that really super stood out to me, or I was super like, these are great characters, but the idea and concepts are so good. I was totally
wrong.
I'm not saying they were bad characters either. They felt very generic shonen characters again, which I think is the weakest part of the anime.
I think you got something there. It would have been really cool if it was a seinen, like if it went to the next age group.
Yeah,
I think they could have done something really, really cool. Not that this isn't good, because obviously we really like it. Yeah. But I think it would have been really interesting if they did that.
I got done with the final episode and I was like, I want the next season now. I want to keep going. Yeah. Which a lot of times I'm like, okay, it'll be interesting to know what happens. But if I never see another episode, I'm not going to be upset. I'm probably going to watch this, whether we do it or not, for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our non-spoiler review. Now we need to talk about our thoughts on the opening. Who cares about that?
I just listened to it during your pre-review just now. That's why I was muted.
I was kidding, guys. I love the OP too. But you go on. So why do you love the OP?
Well, the music, number one. Like, the music is fantastic for the OP. Absolutely love it. It gets me every single time. But also the imagery in it is like, it gives you a glimpse of what's going on and what's upcoming. Like, just the way that it plays with the flowers, and it just makes me so curious. Yeah, the imagery is just insane. Like, when you get those two heads that are like screaming as they're merging together into a flower ball thing, and you got giants walking. Like, when you see this kind of stuff, you know that you're in for a real treat when it comes to the environment. Like, something mind-boggling is going to happen. Something really weird. And it also showcases the characters really well. I think it gives a little bit of a spoiler, at least with one character.
Yeah, I think
it shows him dead. I was a little sad about that, but Otherwise, I have nothing but praise for it.
Same here. The music was fantastic. The visuals were phenomenal, especially that opening scene. Just kind of hits you nearly every time the show starts. Yeah, I was really happy with it.
I actually agree with everything you said. The only thing I'll add about the ending is while it wasn't like grabbing me, whereas the opening really kind of gets you excited and pumped up for the start, the ending kind of settles you back down and like has a more mellow tone.
What are you saying? Are you seeing contradiction there? Are you saying you have an active intro and a passive outro?
Okay, actually, I'm. Hold on. Note to the audience. Note to I didn't tell you guys this, but I'm making a executive decision as the guy who has to write notes for this anime. Tonight, the word dichotomy is banned because people will die from the drinking game.
Yes.
Find another
come
word.
on.
We'll kill somebody. Everything is a dichotomy in this anime.
Yes.
I honestly, I was like thinking of things I wanted to say about it, and I came up with dichotomy like 4 times. I was like, no, we got to ban the word. It cannot happen.
Sound like broken records by the time it's over.
I will say one thing I appreciated about the ED was in a lot of these animes, especially where there's like some hyper violence, you'll go from these terrible, like intense cliffhangers to this like upbeat boppy ED where we're just coming to the outro and all the people are like in these cool poses, and it's like I was not ready for that, and nor was it appropriate. This ED was just you're right. It was like brings you down. Like even if there's like really intense action going on, the way the music starts, the like stills that it shows are just kind of like reminds you, hey, it'll be okay.
It's like comforting you.
Right.
One thing I want to point out that really struck me in the opening, the wife character. And then the doors closing, and then the doors have the picture of the island, just the symbology of the more doors and distance growing of the island on the doors. Oh, I love that shot. That's so good, and such good symbology for what happens in this anime. All right, that is our non-spoiler stuff. We're going to go to spoiler section here in a second, but before we do, we need to announce our next anime. For those who do not want to be spoiled on Hell's Paradise, if we have sold you on going to watch it for yourself, and I think we can all say we highly recommend that you do.
Oh yeah.
Especially I think like if you've been into the recent trend of shonen that have a horror element in them, this is another really good staple in it. But next anime is The Dangers in My Heart. Jason, can you tell us about this anime?
Yeah, please.
I've seen quite a few clips on it. Troy, you okay?
Okay, fine.
Now. Okay.
It seems to be a bit of a little bit of a comedy, but it's like middle schoolers, bloomy youth. I don't know
Sounds
too much about it.
The stuff you hate.
Yeah, it's all the clips I've seen were funny and semi heartwarming, and I figured we've had a run of intenser we had a comedy, and then we had you didn't watch Danmachi.
You watched Danmachi, that's what you mean.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was like, you know what? This one has a good score. The stuff I have seen looks, I was happy with. Nothing like made me cringe or anything. So I was like, let's try something outside the wheelbox.
Did you read the description on my anime list? I just am curious about that.
No.
Okay. I loved it. The description was amazing. You should read it after we finish.
Will do.
I'll just say, from my point of view, we've done nothing but comedies, and I feel like I've been chewing bubblegum for 3 days straight, and I just want a gosh dang decent meal. But hey, we have this anime, so I'm okay.
Here's your meal.
I'm okay. And you know what? There are just a lot of comedy anime. They're going to happen. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And this looked like something we were going to have to watch anyways, whether
It's got
I
a high
picked it or
score.
not.
So yeah. I think you're right.
All right, let's go on to our spoiler warning for Hell's Paradise. So, spoiler warning is being dropped. We are going to reveal plot details, character details, theories that are probably wrong.
Those are the
Yeah.
best kind.
Yeah, that's what we specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hell's Paradise. The setting is Edo, Japan. We're in the times of samurai, of Cherokee ninjas. Is that right?
Shinobis?
Shinobi.
Cherokee
Cherokees. That's a Naruto term. Sorry, Shinobi. That's a Naruto tune. I got Naruto stuff mixed up. I'm sorry. My bad.
No worries.
They used replacement jutsu. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
There's at least a little Naruto in
Yeah,
this.
there is.
Substitution.
And one of the characters has that head thing.
That's right.
That's
Anytime I see that, that's gonna be Naruto for me.
Don't bring up that character.
Yeah, I know, right?
So we start with a shinobi assassin who is been arrested and is about to be executed. And we watch as he goes through they go through multiple attempts of trying to kill him. They try to behead him and his neck breaks the sword. They try to burn him and he walks out of the fire. They use oxes to try to rip him apart and he smashes them back together. And they use hot oil on him and he walks out of that tube. And he's literally saying, like, I want to die. I don't want to keep living. This is terrible. And he's being interviewed by this woman. So we're gonna start with the ninja. He is one of our two main characters. And his name is Gabimaru, also known as Gabimaru the Hollow, because he has no emotion, which we find out isn't really true anymore. Your guys' thoughts on Gabimaru?
I like this character. He definitely serves more of the purpose of the shonen protagonist than anything else. I do like this setup of I'm hollow, I don't have any emotions, and I'm just a killing machine. And how he kind of slowly transforms into, well, maybe there is more to life than so we find out real early that this person interviewing him notices that he's subconsciously like preventing his death, even though he says he wants to. His reactions are different. I also like that his motivations slowly change from purely selfish to helping others because it serves his desires. I don't like what happens to him at the end of the season, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, he's an interesting character because I agree. He's got this sort of almost tropey shonen vibe where the character is a little bit more empty than the characters around them because they're, I don't know, I kind of want to say that they're usually the power fantasy of the player.
Self-insert.
Yeah, of the viewer, I should say. It's not a video game. But it didn't bother me so much because they did call him the Hollow. And so I thought that, okay, that's kind of interesting. You're actually tying it into his name. Like maybe that's another layer of applicability there. And I really liked where they went with part of the end. I know where you're coming from because we talked about it a little bit, Jason, and I agree with you. But there's a different part of that I do like. And I don't want to spoil it too soon because we do have a long way to go. But I didn't mind there.
If you're talking about the part I think you're talking about, I'm actually pretty happy with that part too. So
Okay.
But if you're talking about the part that I think you're talking about that he's talking about, I don't know what's happening.
But I think I know what you know that I know that he knows.
I'm just trying to give you a look into what the listeners are probably thinking right now as you allude to secret
really
stuff later.
Keeping secrets.
Podcast, guys. It's a podcast.
Wait, have we done this before?
I know, right?
We're both terrible and awesome at this. It's a counterbalance.
Yes.
Strong but weak.
So he's all right. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to say about him beyond that.
I have a lot of thoughts on Kabimaru because he is our main character for the most part. He's probably one of the weakest parts for me of the whole series, and it's not that I dislike him. He works fine for the purpose, but he's a character who's going from emotionless to emotional, but I felt like he was more wavering back and forth rather than a steady progress of that. I felt like there'd be a scene where he would suddenly give like a bunch of advice to the character Sagari, and then the next scene he'd be like, "No, I'm emotionless again." I'm like, I feel like you changed, and you now are trying to go back. And they do explain that, like, he is trying to get used to this new version of himself. He is growing. So there's reason for it. I just felt like it was a little clunky. I'm going to probably use that word a lot tonight, clunky. I also, he's a character who every time he saves someone, you can bet 5 seconds ago he thought I should not save them. And the anime does that over and over again. I should not save them. He saved them. Like, we get it, and we do get it. He could just save them, and we'll be like, oh, that's growth. That's not his way. We picked it up after the first fight, but they made sure to call out every time. So his arc is really unsubtle, and like I said, just a little janky for me, even though it very much makes sense what they are trying to do with him and like what's going on with him.
I don't know if I would have thought that he was still debating or noticing that, I should have killed them or I should have let them die. I think I might have thought he was more like the general tropey protagonist where, he made that growth. Now he knows it's good to save. And so his instinct becomes to save. So I kind of wonder if maybe they did it too much, but I do think there was probably at least sometimes they would need to point out that he's still struggling with it because he never masters his emotion.
Right. Because I'm not saying I'm saying once they show he's saving, I guess I'm like, okay, he's made that growth, we can move on. And you're saying like they're showing it, he hasn't gone fully where he just accepts that.
Yeah.
So I get that. Yeah. I'll just leave it at he's a bit janky, but I don't mind him. I want to know. I'm rooting for him in the fights he's in. I love his combat style. He just tears people apart with his bare hands. If that's what he's got to do. So I don't want to come off as complaining about the character. The character is just fine, but there's a lot of other characters that I liked more. And again, I think the characters are the weaker part of the series, which some people don't agree with. So let's talk about this lady interviewing him because he's brought into a room and they're like, okay, we're gonna actually execute you now, and he's like, sure you will. And she's there and she's like, yeah, I'm actually a samurai with the Yamada clan, and their job is they are both weapon testers and executioners. They are master swordsmen for the shogun, just for that purpose. And her name is Sagari, and she is here to be his executor. And like, she starts swinging at him, and he starts dodging and realizing, oh no, she can kill me. She is capable of a killing blow. So let's talk about Sagari, our other main character. What do you guys think of her?
I really like this character. I think her philosophy that because that's one of the things I really don't like about this anime. They spend a lot of time on philosophy and like, what does it mean to be a warrior? What does it mean to have your place within this world? Good and bad, strong and weak. And she kind of embodies all of it within this character and kind of this middle path, like have rage but calmness and like find the in between. And I really like that she kind of spouts this idealism of. It's funny. We've got the action protagonist on one side, but then she's I'll be the hero protagonist on the other. So it's like they took a normal shonen and protagonist and split them into two people. But
a yin and a yang, if you like.
almost like a never mind.
Disappropriate balance something.
Something. But what I really appreciated about her is her strong convictions of like meritocracy and like, because I am good at this thing and I've spent my life doing it, I shouldn't have to be relegated to the life that my, this particular time period, the Edo time period, would relegate me to. And I'll show it. And I really liked, and again, the story does a really good job because there's a scene where this dude that eats Bear's head first is like punching at her and she's deflecting his blows. And the anime does a really good job showing why that's possible. And the power scaling is really well done. So yeah, I really like this character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does a really good job later. Justifying it. Like in this fight, I was like, okay, it's shonen, of course she is, but I didn't feel that it was believable or legitimate until later when they explained the basis of the power system in this particular show, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But I totally agree with you as far as like she's to flesh it out a little bit more. She is a woman in her clan. She's getting picked on because her dad is an executioner. Their whole clan is executioners. But for some reason, other people in the town, it's a big town with lots of people. And I don't know. At first, I thought they were other kids that were going to her school, but maybe they were just other kids in the town. And so like they're throwing rocks at her and ridiculing her for being the daughter of an executioner. So she's like, I'm going to be an executioner then. Screw you guys. I'm going to go home and get a sword. And so she did, and she's really obsessed with it. And that is not what her role is supposed to be in that society. Her role is to grow up and pop out some more executioners. And so this is something that she's getting a lot of chaff for from other people in her own clan. And what's funny is that they're still letting her do it, and nobody seems to be like, at least in her memories that we get to see, nobody seems to be trying to convince her to stop or coming down hard on her for it. It's more of just looks of disapproval from her dad. And, I don't know, maybe some of the other students are saying something we just didn't see a flashback of. But that's enough to bug her because she knows this is not the norm in their society. It's not what's commonplace. And so she's doing something unusual, and it's bugged her, and it stays with her. It's haunting her on her shoulder. And in this season, we kind of see her come to terms with it and move beyond worrying about, whether she needs to think about what the rest of her clan would want. I mean, there's one point where she's even like, the kids, everybody else will ridicule me if I don't because I'm the daughter of an executioner. But if I do, then I'm going to get ridiculed by my own family because I am, And so, yeah, she's interesting. As a character, she's also likable. I don't know. There was something kind of heavy-handed to me a little bit just about the middle path with her, but I haven't really come to terms with what it is yet. So maybe I'll figure it out by the time we finish.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite. I'm the yang. Am I the yang to that?
Yang is active.
Here we go.
Oh gosh. Oh god, he knows. I probably one of my favorite characters. Really enjoyed what they were doing with her. When a character's like, "You can't do this. You are a woman," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get that's fits for the period, but we already also have a female ninja running around. That feels like strong messaging anime. Where are you going with that?" And they're like, "No, we're going somewhere with it. Don't worry about it." Yeah. And her whole thing of, no, I have empathy and softness and kindness, but I also have this executioner way of life of hardness, and the fact that she's both a killer who doesn't want to hurt anybody. Because that's her big thing, is she has a little bit of hesitation when she executes. There is a moment of pain for her, for the prisoners that she executes, and she doesn't want to do that. Hey, another counterbalance. She's all these conflicting two sides of things, and continuously is okay, I need to bring them together. I need to walk down the middle path of that. I was loving they were doing that with the character. We find out later it's much more than that, but I was just happy for the character that like, oh, that's really cool stuff they're doing with her. And I enjoyed every second of it. And she is very likable. I love I stick to the rules no matter what goody who then is in a situation that is not called for. You need to knock that off right now. We need to survive.
Yes. Keep your hands bound. Do not untie them.
So he had told her in the interview, like, the reason he's up for execution or he got caught is he was forced to marry the village chief's daughter. And she was so dumb. She was just so naive to the world, and he couldn't stand her. So he ran away, and they captured him, and it was all a trap by the chiefs, and now he's getting executed. Well, as he's dodging her, she's like, see, you don't want to die. And she shows him his reflection in her blade. I love that they were doing this, and it upset me they stopped. The truth in the blade was always such a cool image, whatever they would show. And so she shows him himself, and he realizes, oh, I'm totally in love with my wife, and she has changed me as a person, and I want to live and see her. And she's like, I can give you a pardon if you complete a quest for the Shogun. You just have to come with me, and we'll do it. And then the guys that arrested him are like, no, we're not going to allow that. And then he beats them all up with ninjutsu, which is his power to catch on fire.
Yep.
They haven't fully explained ninjutsu, even though I'm guessing it's more of the same of the other power system. But yeah, he can catch stuff on fire.
Mm-hmm.
He knocks out all the guards.
So I don't think he realized he was in love with his wife. I think he just admitted it, because he did already say.
Then why did he want to die?
He said that he wanted to die because there was no way he'd be able to actually get away. They would come after him no matter what, forever. Because the way that he describes it when she starts talking about his wife, and she's like, yeah, you still care. Like, you care about your wife. That's the one thing you care about. And he's like, yeah, I do. And then he comes up with like this whole backstory about how he went to the elder and wanted to leave with his wife. And like, I don't know, did he like not do all that? And he just made it up because he just now realized that he was in love with his wife? He must have known. Like, he had to have been in love with her to leave.
This is probably one of the first examples of it's a little bit clunky. This doesn't...
Mm-hmm.
I get what you're trying to get to, and I like it, but also it doesn't fully make sense with him being like, I hate all this, just kill me. Oh, actually, I love my wife and I don't want to die.
Well, and that's where the pardon, I think, was where he thinks that with that pardon he'll now be protected. He can leave the ninjas, and they can't stop him, they can't follow him, they can't hunt him. So now there's a way that he can take his wife and go somewhere safe.
Well, he accepts the pardon. And so in the next episode, they are... we learn a little bit more about her and her father, but he is brought with a bunch of criminals. They're all wearing masks, but it's like a rope and over a little tiny washcloth on your face.
Which is the same thing that everybody wears when they're going to get executed. So, like, that's the symbolism of these guys are on death row.
Isn't it like, it looks like a piece of paper, but...
Yeah.
Could also be paper. Yeah. But, point is, a bunch of them, they're brought before the Shogun, and they're given their quest, which is they have to travel to what is called the afterlife. You can call it paradise, you can call it hell, you can call it whatever you want. But it's an island that they believe is the afterlife. And they believe the elixir of life is there. And they've already been sending people to this island, and only a few have come back. And every time they do come back, they're covered in flowers. And when I say covered in flowers, I mean coming out of their eye sockets, blossoming out of their skin, branches and vines coming out of them. And they show them... This is a terrible idea. They show them, hey, look at this guy. He's still kind of alive.
And of course, all of them have this huge smile of bliss on their face, too.
Yeah, the flower people.
Yeah, the flower people. Yep. So this one criminal's like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm out. And then an executioner steps up and just cuts off his head. And they're told, like, yeah, if you're out, then you go back to your execution. And so we are assigning each of you a monitor, your own executioner, who will take you to the island. And if you deviate from the quest at all, or if they die, you're dead. Another executioner will kill you if your monitor dies. So you have to both protect your monitor. They don't protect you. That should be very clear. They're not there to protect you. They're there just to kill you if you fail. But then they're told there's way too many of you, so all of you with like colored hair and special outfits, you need to kill all these red shirts so that we can get to the main cast.
There was one guy that had like an eye patch, and I thought, oh, that guy's got an interesting enough design. He's probably going to be... Nope. Nope. He got Gabimaru'd.
So these criminals start all bashing each other's brains in and murdering each other. We see a couple try to attack the executioners, and Sagari kills a couple, but she does have a moment of hesitation, which her teacher, is Aizen her teacher? I think so.
I think the redhead guy?
Redhead guy, eye patch, yep.
Yes, that's his teacher.
Definitely an important character.
Or a senior student.
I believe that was like her at least like her lieutenant, or at least like
that could be
higher status.
He was shown in her flashback telling her like, hey, you are giving them a moment of pain, just so you know you need to do better. Mm. Anyway, she kills a couple guys. Then Gabimaru goes up to the Shogun and is like, can we not kill people? I'm trying not to do that anymore. So these criminals are like, hey, whoever kills him automatically gets to go. And then these criminals come up to him and he's like, don't. If you don't stop, I'm going to murder you. And they're like, no, we can get you. He's like, all right, then I guess I can murder you. And he, with his bare hands, starts ripping through like 6 guys. Mm-hmm. Ends up out of the barrier, like in the water, blood dripping all over him. And everyone's like, oh, he's so brutal.
And he is. He's like kicking heads off and everything. Yep.
I warned you.
And so 10 of them are chosen, and then they are sent to paradise. Now we jump. We don't get like any travel time or getting to meet any of these characters. Just 10 unique looking drawn people, 10 executioners with them, and then we're on the island. And this was a bit of a jump for me. I kind of felt like we maybe could have taken some time to get there, but okay, we're there. And so now we need to talk about the island. What you guys thought of it.
I love the slow reveal of the messed up state this thing is. Because you land, and one of the first things they notice is like the flora is it's all, not all of it, but the majority of it is stuff that they recognize, but none of it is supposed to be growing next to each other. Like, it's from different regions. And then another thing that they notice is there's a bunch of religious iconography that's either twisted in some way, or it's multiple religions that clash, but they're being merged in some way. And I found that fascinating that this was happening on this island. But the slow reveal of the dangers of the island were really neat too, because we know people were coming back as, flower corpses. But how they got to that was held onto for, I think, the perfect amount of time. And I really found this place just absolutely fascinating. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely loved it. There was one of the lines where they were talking about how the different religions that were here, it was almost cosmetic. Like somebody was putting together this world, but they had only the most surface level knowledge of each religion. And so they were like combining them poorly. And I was thinking, is this a comment of like how a lot of stories are told? Like, are we doing a self-commentary on the authors? Like, I only have surface knowledge of these religions, so you're going to see all of the symbolism from all of them. And that doesn't seem to be where it went. At least I didn't get that impression as things went on. But at first, when I heard that, I thought, this is really cool. That would be a cool fourth wall thing for like, yeah, this world is actually being messed up by the author because the author didn't know what he was doing. But yeah, as it was, the world as it's created, this island as it's created is awesome. I love how there's like you never expect what comes next, right? And the way that the creatures are designed is fascinating. I was kind of expecting that there were going to be more creatures because the ones we're introduced to are essentially moths and centipedes. And they're both very unusual. They have human qualities, shall we say. And I didn't see any other smaller creatures, which kind of surprised me. Later, that's explained. It makes sense. But then you also have like all of these giant creatures that just start walking around and showing up. And the art for them is very like Attack on Titan mixed with, what's that? Can't believe I don't remember the name. What's that anime you really like, Jason?
Mushishi.
Mushishi.
Oh,
And it's
yeah,
got,
yeah.
like,
I was just about to say that.
yes, Mushishi flavors.
1,000 points to try.
Yes. Right? And so you get like this really nice combination of creepy yet recognizable. And they're put together with different recognizable parts, right? So you got like fish combined with human, or sometimes they're not recognizable at all. It's just some kind of weird twisted thing. And you're left wondering, like, what is the explanation for this? It's just mystery after mystery that confronts you. And it does so in such an imaginative way that it absolutely pulled me in. I loved it. And the more I found out about the island, the more intrigued I was. I did not see a single false step taken with the world development. That was really cool.
The perfect encapsulation is a giant with legs coming out of his eye holes.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for that. That doesn't serve any purpose. That doesn't make him a better giant. It actually could only make him worse. Why are legs coming out of his eye holes? And there's a character who discusses it later that it's clear it's not random enough to be natural, but it's not well made enough to be man-made. So it's something else. It's some kind of chaos that's making this. Jeremy in pre-show used the word alien, and that was perfect. Like, it's just familiar enough, but also impossible enough that it's unsettling. Even though this isn't really scary of an anime, everything you see is just always unsettling. The whole island is unsettling, and it is the backbone of this anime. It is what hooked me. It is what I am here for the most. Is this amazing, creepy, disturbing island that every layer gets weirder. And like, it's like when we meet the rulers of the island, it didn't get better. Like,
no.
they were just as weird and bizarre, and it was like, oh man, I'm digging everything that they are throwing at me with this island. So yeah, then they'd stop the fight, and I'd be like, yeah, but what about those butterflies with human faces? Let's talk about those. Cool, yeah, yep. Cool. Shonen fight, cool. But what about the legs coming out of the guy's eye holes? I need to know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got real strong Land of the Lustrous vibes from this, where you're left wondering, like, what are those enemies in the sky? What is going on with, where did these rock people come from? You know, it's that same really creative storytelling.
All right, so again, now we're fully on the island. Gabimaru and Sagari are pushing their way in. He's committed. He's going to get this elixir to get back to his wife. And we should talk a little bit about his wife. Her father branded her face so that no one would ever want to marry her when she was a child, but he still forced Gabimaru to marry her. We're not really sure why, and there's even some questions if what is real. But she's a very nice person. She's like, hey, she taught him manners and stuff, which he's only now starting to use for the first time. So he's gonna get back to her, and they come across another criminal and another executioner. The name is Kion the Twisted, and Kisho is the executioner. And this is a guy with like a ton of weapons. And this is right after Gabimaru breaks his hand bindings. He's like, well, we don't need those. She's like, no, the rules are your hands have to be bound the whole time. I could kill you for that. And he's like, this is a dangerous island. That seems like a dumb idea. She's like, nope, that's the rule. And then he gets hit with this giant iron ball that this bad guy throws, and he comes out of it, and he's like, his hands aren't tied. But he fights him, and this guy has armor sewn into his flesh.
Yeah, and she still makes him tie his hands for the fight.
Yeah, he has to retie his hands for the fight. Which
so,
makes
like,
it harder.
The guy keeps hitting him as he's just standing there tying his own bonds.
Weapons are breaking against him.
Yeah.
But he kills the guy, and so the executioner takes the head, and he's like, "All right, I'm leaving. You got to quit following the rules so much. We're here for the elixir of life. That's what really matters. That's what's going to make the Shogun happy. So do that. He's not going to care if you came back and the guy didn't have his hands tied. Yeah. But he leaves, and I'm sure he's fine.
Oh yeah,
he's fine.
He's a major character. He'll be coming back."
The guy mentions, if we don't hurry, the Shogun's just going to send more. They'll send this guy's entire clan if they have to. And Gabimaru realizes, the chief could come here. I have to hurry. So he decides, as soon as this guy's gone, he decides, I'm killing Sagari. And he starts fighting her. He breaks her sword. He's attacking her. But every time he's about to get a killing blow, he stops himself, and he can't get himself to do it. She even comments, he's like, I've gotten weak. And she's like, no, you've gotten strong. Which, again, how did I miss the theme for so long?
Right?
Don't worry, I was right there with you.
It's good.
Well, what's also interesting is that she's doing the same thing. Like, there's a couple of times where she's like, why didn't I swing my sword? I should have swung my sword right there. And he even noticed and was like, that would have been a killing blow. Why didn't she swing her sword? So without realizing it, well, maybe she is realizing it, but she's pulling punches too.
We jump over to a guy named Tamiya, who we'll talk about. Well, we can talk about Tamiya and Fuji now. So Tamiya is the big guy with the beard. He wants to be the best swordsman ever. He wants to be immortal. And they're like, you want the elixir? He's like, no, I want to be a legend. Like, I just want people to talk about me. And his executioner is like this guy morbidly obsessed with dissecting people. So whenever they're like, hey, I'm going to go kill these people, and I could dissect them. Oh, let's go. So, thoughts
dude.
on this duo? I put them together. They do play a bigger part later, but any thoughts on them?
Oh, really? I thought they were all right. It was interesting to see that they made it to the end of the season, because I was for sure that they were going to get knocked off, or at least the dragon. But I think he serves a really cool moment where he gets stung and he's like, nope.
Takes the hand right off.
Yep. Yeah, one of the other things about him that I thought was really cool is that the only reason that he's up for execution is because he lost his temper. Because somebody said, oh, you couldn't kill a real dragon. And he's like, oh, I'm going to destroy your house and kill you. You know?
Because there was a dragon on the sign, so he broke the dragon.
So, like, up until this point, he's just been a guy that's out there training his swordsmanship, right? Going from place to place, getting better. Not a criminal. Now, he may not necessarily have, like, he may be neutral, right? Like, he's not going to seek the good of anything, but he isn't necessarily out there trying to do bad,
He
right?
even states his intent is to kill every other criminal on this island first, because he doesn't really care about the quest. He cares about, this is going to be some great fighting I'm about to do.
Yeah. And so I find him really interesting because he's, in a way, the least criminal of the criminals. And you even see that, especially like in some of his interactions with the little girl.
May. Yeah, her name is May. I don't have her on here.
Yeah, that's right, May. His interactions with May, where he's like immediately fatherly and protective, and it just, you don't get criminal vibes from him in that. The closest thing you get is like competition. Like, I want to see if I'm a better fighter than you are, so I'm going to trash talk you. And so I liked him for that. He stood out among the criminals as interesting to me.
This guy, this trope shows up in almost every shonen anime. I can think of like Bleach. Oh, yep, he's there. Oh, yep, there he is in that one. But I also love him. Like you said, he almost always gets partnered with a young girl that sits on his shoulder. Like as soon as he put Mei on his shoulder, I was like, yeah, that's right. That's what you're supposed to do in a shonen. You have the big dumb strong guy throws small sweet child on his shoulder, and he's now better for it. So yeah, I like him. I'm excited that he's still in the show.
Yep.
Oh, and yeah, so he cuts off his hand. Then the giants show up. This is literally where we see the guy with the feet out of his eye sockets, and Gabimaru's faced with a fish man giant guy that he has to fight, and he does. He kills him, and he uses ninjutsu to do so. He even saves Sagari. This is the first I shouldn't save her, and then he does. Mm-hmm. And then so I must have missed the scene. So at some point, it was in the last fight. The one guy was like, "Hey, how many people do you even think are still alive?" And then it showed like half the characters are just dead now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The courtesan, the guy who could octopus his arms and he was going to choke a guy, he's dead. They showed, the island's taking its toll, but they showed this character Yuzuhara as dead, and then she shows up in this scene, and she's not dead because she's a liar.
Yeah.
So actually, I think that's one of my favorite things about the anime. Is there's a couple threads that I'm pretty sure we're getting unreliable narrators. And
I love that.
I'm loving it because we're getting mixed signals about stuff that we haven't seen. Like, because the character will say, this thing happened in this way. And then another character will probe them a bit or like think about, well, they've never done this. And like going, did it really happen that way though? Mm-hmm. And then like they don't resolve it. And so the audience is just like, wait, maybe not.
Yep.
So we mentioned the character Aizen, red hair, eye patch. We see him get instantly killed by his criminal, even though he's supposed to be super powerful and strong. This
not just killed, eaten.
Yeah, he's guarding a giant cannibal, and the giant cannibal like instantly just grabs him and kills him. But my question is, do you guys think he's really dead?
It's possible that the cannibal just ripped his arm off and ate that.
It looked like his whole top half was missing.
I agree.
So...
I do think he's dead, but his character design was so unique, and he showed up in like flashbacks and stuff, and I'm like, well, he's got to come back.
I mean, we've seen some pretty fantastical things on the island so far, so if he got help from somebody, maybe. But I have a feeling he's just gone.
I'm curious. It's not really a theory, but more of a maybe they could go this route of if the island absorbs the bodies of certain people, they could come back on the other side as the Dyson, the priests level of alive. So like maybe Aizen could come back, but he's now on the other team. A certain other character who we all cry about. Maybe he's not fully done, because it's just like I'm glad that there's stakes to the show and that characters aren't immortal just for plot armor. But also, like, you spent a lot of time setting up this character, then you just so unceremoniously.
He's first rank too. You know how they keep talking about like ranks?
Yeah,
he was the most powerful.
Okay, so that small theory I have is that these dead characters could come back on the other side later as eaten and then regenerated as plant people.
That would be very interesting.
Okay. Yuzuhara shows up and she's like, hey, let's form an alliance. And she uses sexy seduction jutsu on Gabimaru. He's like, I'm also a ninja and I'm married. I don't care.
I love these scenes. Like 3 times, he just grabs her wrist, twists, and then down to the ground.
Yep.
Your guys' thoughts on Yuzuhara?
I like this character. I like her design. No,
When you were saying that, I was like, what does he mean by that?
right? No, she's definitely the yin to Senta's yang. But what I
No.
really what?
That means she's more passive?
No, just the opposite. Yin to yang.
We don't
Okay.
understand the symbology of the yin yang,
Okay.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
We're Bakas.
I would say she's more active. She'd be the yang to her yin.
Okay, fine. That. I kind of don't care. It doesn't detract from the point. But I appreciated that she's kind of the scoundrel of the group. Like, she doesn't seem to be in it to kill just to kill for kill's sake. She seems to only do it when she really needs to either get, like, if it's to accomplish a goal. And in the majority of cases, she wants people alive in order to manipulate them. And the story does a really great job of it.
Yeah, some of my favorite scenes with her is where other people are fighting and they're yelling at her, come on, help us. Come on, we made a deal. You got to hold up your end of the deal and help us fight. And she's like, okay. And so she grabs like her little throwing dagger things. And she just, I'm cheering you. Go, Gabimaru. You can win. You can do it. You know? But it's also really cool that she's got a very interesting combat technique that she's constantly trying to keep secret, right? Like she doesn't want anybody to see it, because she knows that's kind of her. That's it. Once it's out there, people are going to know what she can do, and so she's very tricky that way. It was nice to see that she was a thinking character. I wasn't sure they were going to make her a thinking character the way they drew her. Not that I didn't enjoy it too, but it's not where I was sure they were going to go.
I absolutely love this character for that she's not treacherous, because at first she seems treacherous. She's not. She won't backstab you just to backstab you. But she takes care of herself first. If two people are hurt and she has two medicines, she will give one of them, this happens, she gives one of them a medicine, and I need the other one. Right? I can't give up a medicine that I might need for myself. And as soon as there's danger, she starts running. She hopes you run with her, but she's got to survive. But she does fight when that's the option that best gets her to survive. So she doesn't, like you said, she cheerleads the one time, but then another time she does get in a fight because she knows this is what I have to do. I like that she's not the I'm automatically going to betray you and However, I think being the character who never makes the sacrificial play is a huge death flag, and I'm super worried about her future because that's like an automatic. My character arc is going to be self-sacrifice.
That's a good point.
Especially with what happens, I think that will have a long impact on her.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of self-sacrifice, we need to talk about Senta, her little panda bear companion. He's one of the executioners, and he's just a fat, lovable nerd.
Yep.
My favorite type of me. What do you guys think of Senta?
You just basically described him. I do like that he's the difference between him and Yuzu is that she lies to everyone but herself, and he lies to only himself. That was neat. I don't think I've seen that in storytelling before. And he's trying to be something that he's not because he's allowing the world, or at least this time period, to tell him he must be a warrior, he must be an executioner, he must be a samurai. Which again is a great reflection of Sagari, where she's like, no, I'm going to be a warrior because I want to be. And also I I appreciate him as a narrative device as well, because there's a lot of things within the story that kind of don't make sense, or like the story needs to slow down a little bit, and he's like, hold up, we need more information. So yeah.
And as someone who was wanting more information, I was always appreciative. Like, Senta, talk. I want Senta to have long monologues.
Yeah. I couldn't help but think of it as like party composition, especially at the moment where you had got to choose. Like, is Ashley gonna die, or is that other guy in Mass Effect, the other human? Clearly, I let him die. I did not care about him. But it was that same kind of thing where I'm like, oh no, I'm playing too much Baldur's Gate. Oh no, there's this moment of, I've got to choose which character's going to die. Which one do I choose? And I was thinking, Senta's the scholar, and the other guy's like an amazing warrior. But surely when they wrote this game, they took account that you might choose the scholar. So there's probably other benefits to having. I'm going to risk it. I'll take the scholar. But maybe that wouldn't have been the best decision here.
Definitely, I've been playing too much Baldur's Gate.
Yes.
Way too much.
I have no idea what you think of the character, but I know what you think of Baldur's Gate right now.
Yeah. It's a great game. You should play it.
Okay. Eventually, they do agree to an alliance. There's also another guy there named Genji. No reason we aren't talking about him.
He's super important. Contributes a lot.
He's there as well. Sagari passes out from the butterfly dust. The butterfly scales are poisonous, and they will knock you out. And then we meet the bandit siblings. Now, we've seen one of them a lot. His name is Aza. He is a bandit king, and he is basically your berserker type fighter. And his executioner is actually his brother, disguised as went through the ranks of the Yamada clan and became an executioner just to get him free from them.
In a month.
And in a month, yeah, and has now got them on this quest, which he wants for himself. He wants elixir for himself. I'm pretty sure that's what he's here for.
Yeah.
Aza. So, Aza and Toma, your guys' thoughts?
It just felt like Bakugo all over again. Hey,
Lawn shark teeth.
It almost felt like a Boomerang storyline that just was in there to fill time. Their story is okay, but we only get small snippets of it. Just to continue to make it's like, remember these two characters are over here doing their thing? Yeah, let's show them for a couple minutes, and then okay, now we're back to our main story. Yeah, it almost felt like, hey, remember that there's other criminals on the island? Yeah, these guys. That's it. I don't know. They weren't as compelling as the other characters, and they were able to give us some more information about the island, specifically surrounding the Guardians, as well as like being able to merge with it. But like, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of those two.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I just kind of found it weird that all of the other criminals seemed to be way weaker than Gabimaru, but this guy is like catching up, and we don't ever see him fight Gabimaru, but I'm using other characters that they're fighting as like proxies to gauge their strength, and he's catching up so fast. His key defining characteristic is adaptability. And the way the adaptability is used in this is that he just never really, really loses a battle. Like when he loses a battle, he loses it the way a Saiyan loses a battle. He'll come back twice as strong, right? Like that's it. And I don't find that compelling, because I don't think he necessarily learns anything from his battles. He just gets better at battling, which is kind of weird because I'm not usually the person that cares about character growth, but I do see it here. as the missing quality in him for me, at least. I don't see anything about him that's changing. There's a little bit of reveal, like we're learning a bit more about him and how, yeah, he's a criminal and he's pretty horrible, but you know, he wants to protect the purity and innocence of his brother. But it sounds like it's like cosmetic innocence of his brother, because his brother's pretty brutal as well. Like I don't necessarily think he's super innocent and sweet. So he's not protecting him as like his personality or his what he's experienced. He's merely protecting, like, don't harm him. I'll cut my own eye out to make sure you don't cut my brother's eye out. You know, don't do something horrible to him like that. My biggest issue is his, I don't even want to call it power creep, because it's not creep, it's like sprint, his power sprint. It is crazy. And there is the potential that they will have some really good explanation and consequence for it. And I think that could totally change my mind on the matter. But as things stand right now, I absolutely find these two annoying. And whenever they show up on the screen, I just kind of I wait, and I just want to go back to the any other characters. Give me any other character. I don't like these two.
I was kind of in that boat at the beginning with them, and especially because I'm trying to figure out their relationship. Because like at one point, Aza abandons Toma because it seems like, oh, they're gonna get caught by the monsters, and Aza runs away. But then he comes back with a giant axe. He's like, oh, I just picked up one of their weapons. And so it changes the scene to, he wasn't abandoning him. He trusted that Toma could handle himself. Mm-hmm. So there's this very much like slow play on the relationship. Plus, like you said, protecting Toma, but not really making him do stuff Toma doesn't want to do all the time. But where they're going with the fact that Aza has decided, I'm going to drink the blood and eat the flesh of everything we're killing. And that's clearly, like you said, causing a power sprint in him, but is now starting to show physical signs of change. I'm fascinated by where that's going.
Yeah.
Also, I read a book once called Ruin? But it was about these backpackers who end up on these Mayan ruins, and then when they try to leave, the locals like chase them back onto it. They're not allowed to leave, and the whole book is about evil vines that kill you, and they have to stay on this old temple that is covered in vines, and the vines slowly keep grabbing them. The vines can talk, and one guy gets injured, and he wakes up, and the vine is climbed in his wound into his body, and I've been freaked out by that imagery ever since I read that book. It's very much like when you read Jaws for thinking about sharks, right? Like, vines are scary, guys. So when they're thrown in that vine pit, I was so uncomfortable. I was like, no, not again.
Man, it sounds like a Stephen King book. Jeez.
It wasn't, but it was definitely, like I said, it did for vines for me what the book Jaws did for sharks for most people.
You'll never be going into jungles.
Yeah, it's I can never get the imagery out of my head of like a vine growing into your own wound, and then you see it like in your leg, and
especially when the anime is like doing it constantly.
Yes. So not only, like I said, the whole island is very uncomfortable, but I have that specific
little
fear,
bit of a phobia.
I guess. Yeah. All right, so that they just kill some monsters like we kind of talked about, and he starts drinking their blood. When Sagari awakens, she's surprised that Gabimaru is there. This is where we get the scene with Genji, who's like, yo, woman, you should just go home. You should have never been a samurai. Yeah. And she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have. And then Gabimaru is like, hey, man, you should just do what you want. And you're way more... and he keeps saying, I sense that you are more powerful than me. Mm-hmm. Which... I love. When we first started, Jason, you said, a couple characters aren't going to die. I think the fact that we have two main characters means one of them is definitely going to die, and I have no idea which one it is. And I love that.
I could see that, and I think the stakes are high enough to where that could be the case. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon. That might be like a season 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, I can see him waiting to the end, anywhere between the halfway point to the end, making that sacrifice. Maybe going the Gurren Lagann route and killing the main character halfway, or waiting till the end to see only one gets to go home, or both could survive. But I do love by making two characters who are both, which one is the shonen main character? Who's the one who's really going to get powerful? Because they both have their own way. They're both on the opposite, doing it kind of the opposite way. I think that's great. Anyway, he gives her that.
Actually, you know what? I'll save my theory for later. Never mind.
Okay.
So she decides I'm gonna stay, and he attacks her with his sword. Oh, I skipped over a section. He does, but that hasn't happened yet because we need to talk about Tenza and Nuru Guy. Let's just call her Nuru. Tenza is an executioner who has decided that his criminal is innocent and needs to get out of here, and he's going to take him back to the Shogun and just plead for mercy. That's his plan. So he's like, get on the boat, we're getting out of here. And she's like, by the way, you're supposed to think it's a boy, but it's a girl.
It's a girl.
It's clearly a girl from the beginning.
Yeah.
She points out, like, all the currents go back to the island. There's no current out, but they find this wreckage and they get on the wreckage. And the first executioner from the first fight, who took the head and was like, I'm going home, he's there with flowers coming out of his corpse. With and the head's there too with flowers.
Yep.
And then he's ripped in half.
Yeah. So they have to fight their way to another boat because their boat gets destroyed from giant kraken with tentacles.
Yeah, with human faces on the tentacles. It's so good. So weird, creepy.
And then we see a map of like wreckage that builds a wall around the whole island. So you can get into the island, but you cannot get off of the island.
That confused me. Like, wouldn't they have run into the wreckage getting into the island then?
You would think so.
So, okay, we know, spoiler for down the road, that they need humans to make their elixir.
Right.
I think this whole thing is like Venus flytrap. Yeah, you can come in. They lower the wreckage. Come on in.
Have the Krakens like pull it apart.
Yeah, let the boats pass in and then close it up.
I can see that.
Except for because we know someone's gotten out. I think they allow the occasional human to escape.
Curiosity.
Yeah, come back. Someone survived. We know there's something there. We have to keep trying. This is obviously fantastical. There has to be a reason to go back. I think that's all intentional.
I was also kind of wondering, just since we're on the topic of the boat and the guy that was allowed to leave, I was wondering, why are they allowing this guy? Why did they not burn everything as soon as the boat arrived? Like, are they not worried the flower thing is contagious? But it's clearly not, because, why would you want that to be contagious? If it was contagious, it gets to the homeland, then you don't have humans anymore. They can't come to your place. So it can't be, but they don't know that.
Because the Shogun's not worried about the people. The Shogun is worried about getting himself the eternal.
He was on stage with it, though. It was brought in like right next to him.
You're right. He's not a smart Shogun.
No, that's true. He is a dumb Shogun. I haven't seen a fight to the death before. This is gonna be great. Reduce your numbers.
Let's talk about Tenza and Nuru Guy. What do you think of this team?
They did a very nice job, like, making Nuru like innocent, like the backstory. And I thought Tenza's backstory also was compelling. And man, did it make him, man, when he goes, it hurts. Because he does. So they did a really good job setting him up to be like, this is not going to be someone that bites it, because like he's got the headband, he's got the I'm gonna surpass my master backstory, he's got the
super honorable.
I'm willing to sacrifice anything to get this kid off this island. Like every shonen trope is just kind of dumped into this character. And this, I think him and Eye Patch Guy getting off really struck home for me that, okay, this is a anybody can go anime and I'm loving it.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, his backstory of being from the streets and then how difficult it was for him to get over his own issues with training and just submit to it to the point where he actually started enjoying it. And now he's a proud executioner of their clan. Everything was there. And this was the opening's spoiler, is that we see his body laying there all bloodied. And I was like, oh, he's not going to make it. And then in addition to that, the way they handled the storytelling around him was a little bit awkward to me, because they did some of his backstory and then they did or did they even do some of his backstory? I don't think they did his backstory until he was basically in a situation there was no way he was getting out of.
Right. It was it wasn't until he was in the fight. I think even after Shion shows up, the flashbacks start.
Yeah, and so there is no way he's surviving the fight with the entity that shows up at this point. And then they go and they do a flashback, and the flashback is touching, but because they chose to do it that way, and I'd seen in the OP he was going to die, and I saw how powerful this creature was, and this is going to be a showcase of this creature's power, so somebody's going to die. Probably going to be him. I found myself not allowing... I could feel the anime trying to say, connect with this character. And I'm like, no, you're going to kill him. I'm not, you've shown me your hand.
You can't make me.
You can't. And I still felt really bad when he died. Like, it still hurt. But I kind of wish they changed that order a little bit. I wish they gave us some of his story before, and they didn't show us that he was going to die in the LP. Because then I wouldn't have had that hesitation. I would have allowed myself to connect, and it would have hit so much harder. And yeah, I know that sounds like masochism, but when it comes to good storytelling, you want the pain. Right. You need the pain.
Right.
Give me the pain.
You've always been very clear that you don't mind the emotional manipulation, you just don't want to notice it.
That's exactly right. I noticed it too much here.
Yeah, this anime does death flag very hard. Even Senta's death is like, they start showing flashbacks for him. It's like, oh,
Senta's gone.
No. Well, he's not making it out of this episode.
Yep.
I loved Tenza. He was the shonen protagonist I needed. You know, I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm kind of an idiot, but I'm gonna fight my way out of this. I love that she's like, samurai are idiots. So then he starts using that against her, like, samurai are idiots. You gotta tell me which way to go. You gotta tell me what you want to do, so he can get her involved. And then they get back to shore. She takes off. They start bathing. And he's like, "Pardon me for saying, but you have a very feminine body." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm a girl."
I loved how she was playing on that too, because she's like, we're going to get married, just because it made him uncomfortable. And she kept playing on that. And it was actually really adorable. And also his response to that was one of the best I've seen in anime. He's like, no, we're not even going to talk about that because it's wrong for so many reasons right now. I was like, thank you.
I thought at one point he said, yeah, probably, but we can't talk about that right now, or something like that.
Exactly.
He admitted we're probably going to get married.
Which was super cute.
Yeah. I like the character. I'm still, knowing what happens to Tenza, I'm now super invested in Nuru, though, because she has that connection, and same for this other character who's coming up that we'll talk about when he gets here.
It's going to hurt real good when she dies.
Yep. Don't you dare. All right.
Son of
okay, so now Genji is attacking Sagari, and that giant cannibal guy shows up, smashes him. He's like, "Oh, I was wrong. Women can't fight. Here's my sword." Gabimaru had showed up and started fighting, and so her and Gabimaru join together to fight. And it's great. They both have the same line at the same time, like "back me up."
Yeah, that was cool.
That was good.
And Yuzu cheers them from the sidelines, and she's
Clack, clack, clack.
she's pinned Senta to the tree so that he can't help because she doesn't want him to die because she needs him to get back to the mainland.
Yep.
So most of this episode is just a big fight with him. Gabimaru starts doing well, but he gets knocked down, and Sagari has to defend. And this is where she's able to block his giant blows with her sword. Again, it doesn't make sense now, but the power system will be introduced soon.
Yeah.
And they eventually they set the forest on fire to give him carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, God. Okay, the narration for this was killing me because I'm like, I know the era this is in. What you should be saying is something like, smoke rises, and when people breathe it, they fall down, they lose, they start coughing. Instead, it's like the carbon monoxide merges or combines, attaches to the hemoglobin, and I'm like, what are you doing? This is an old samurai show. Don't give me modern understanding.
But it works, and they get him knocked down, and she's able to execute him and cut his head off. And then we see that he was just a really hungry baby who just kept eating people.
His parents and
Everyone.
His
parents. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel sorry for him at all.
No. I did think it was kind of funny how, like, when he got really mad, he just started screaming, and he still sounded like a little baby. Like, his voice was not deep like you would expect from a giant.
Well, he got upset because his stomach was rumbling.
Yeah.
That's right. He starts screaming and crying so loud.
Yeah.
Right. So they run from the fire, and they notice all the monsters are running towards the fire, but they're like, okay, we'll just go where the monsters came from. And Yuzuhara is already there. They find an abandoned village. And then we switch back over to Aza and Toma, the brothers. And they come across two ladies necking in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Naked ladies.
Okay, and it's creepy to say it, but these, like, they're ladies, but they're not complete ladies. Like, they don't have nipples.
Right. There's no nipples or genitalia, but there are a bunch of nude
Yeah.
people.
And it is kind of funny how this anime loves to be like, all right, your top's off, because they don't have any nipples. So it's like, it's not real nudity. It's fine.
Yeah, it's
like
constant. Sailor Moon transformation nudity. Doesn't count.
Exactly. Yes.
The way this is introduced and the way they turn towards these two is the creepiest way I've seen that kind of, like, whenever I see that kind of animation, I'm like, run. Just go.
Right.
Because those be demons.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are the Tensen, who we're going to talk about here in a second. But they're, so the scene is they come across these two ladies. The one lady's like, hey, you guys should join us. And the other one's like, no, I hate humans. Transforms into a man and starts attacking them. And I was just like, mind blown. I did not see any of this coming. When she suddenly shifted, like her chest got all big, and I was like, oh yeah, run. They gotta run.
Yeah.
They gotta run right now.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on the Tensen, and it's not just the sex, but it's the fact that they use sex as part of, like, they're getting strong, but there is the word I kept coming up with is there's a perverseness to them. The way they treat other human beings, the way they treat each other, everything is just, and I've never seen a shonen villain that's like that. They're usually evil, or I want power to control people. These are like, I want to experiment and get inside of you. And wait, is that sexual? Yeah, it kind of is. Oh God, they got vines. I'm running.
Exactly.
Well, your guys' thoughts on the Tensen?
These were super cool, creepy villains, or villain, because we come to find out that it's one that split into 7. But now they have different personality. Anyways, it's a little complicated. but also kind of, like you said, perverse. And I actually think like this villain is it's kind of like the next level of bad guy, because not only are they using like, you know, what you might find chi in like Dragon Ball Z, but then they've got their plant powers where they can regenerate. These guys are super cool.
Yeah. This was really, really, like, it was amazing, because when I saw in the OP, right, like every single time it played, and I actually watched it a lot with this one because I love the song so much. It shows like there's this blonde dude and he's like spooning a pink-haired dude, it looks like, although it's really hard to tell. It could be a girl at that point. I really genuinely couldn't tell. And so I was like, okay, those characters are clearly important. And they just kind of disappear. And then at this point we see them, and I'm like, okay, I know that's those characters, because I mean, what are the odds that these two girls look just like them? But they're girls. Something's off here. something's weird. And so when they shifted into the male form, or at least the blonde one did, I was like, this is Alien. I love it. This is exactly what I'm looking for, where it's so unfathomable and unknowable that your brain just latches on and says, okay, I need an explanation. I need to understand how this worked. Where did they come from? Where did they get this power? What are the limits? What are they going to do? What are their intentions? What do they want? And what's the difference between them, right? Because if they're all, and we learn later, like you said, Jason, they're fragments of a larger personality, really. So like, what comes to the surface in each one, right? With this pink-haired one, she's like, hey, you want to fool around? The other one's like, gross. So there's some stark differences between these ones. And I'm just absolutely fascinated with the concept, the design, and then also how they tie it with their power system. Like, just the concept that the reason they change genders like that, which really, like, they're changing sexes, they're changing physical form. They're shapeshifters, but only between these two forms. Well, okay. That's not true.
Right. They also have monster forms.
Yeah. But like, this seems to be the core of their two forms, right? The core of them is these two forms, because that symbolizes the yin and yang. And the reason they change is because they're literally circulating. Okay, which one needs to be prominent right now? Do I need the active energy, or do I shift back to the passive energy? Because they have to keep that balance. It's not necessarily that they're accessing the active, the male energy, the yang. It's that they need to circulate it so that it mixes, so that they have a more middle level and thus higher power. And so it's absolutely fascinating. I love it. It's intriguing. I love the way they designed them.
Now, Jimmy, I need your encyclopedic knowledge here. So they're also, from what I got, based on flowers. They are flower people, and even each one has its own flower. But don't flowers have male and female parts?
You got it. Yes, they do.
So, that was so not only the yin yang, but they're also shifting flowers.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that, because I was like, when they do turn into their monster form and they're a flower, I was like, oh, they got pistils and stamens, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this makes perfect sense. They're flower monsters. And then later they started explaining the yin and yang, because I was like, okay, flower monsters doesn't really explain the Tao, right? Like this weird energy they're enveloping themselves with. So when they then explained that and tied it into it as well, I was like, okay, this is bliss.
I think my favorite thing about them, though, is that, you know, a lot of times when we have monsters, like what's the scariest thing they can do? Well, when they capture their prey, they eat them. They are doing that. They aren't eating the people they capture, but just in a kind of roundabout way. And it's almost worse, because there's almost like the end comes so slowly, because they're turning them into their own eternal youth elixir. And it's just like, that's so cool. Like, they go to the island to look for the elixir, and it was in their bodies the whole time.
That's right.
It was within the whole time.
You're the elixir. Which also, that lends even more credence to the idea that they knowingly sent that ship back with the guy with the flowers. Because why would they let him leave? He's going to turn into Tao. Well, because it takes Tao to make Tao, right? So send him out to get more.
They're farming.
That's right.
Plants are farming the human. Oh, I hate that so much.
Oh, that's even better.
The plants are farming humans.
So, I just to point out, like these little revelations that we have that as you're watching it, and you're realizing not only is this cool, but it's layered and it's thought out, and like everything they built on. Again, they switch because they're yin yang, but they're also flowers, which are also female and male. There's not just one reason for what's happening here. There's multiple stacked upon layers. The creativity making this idea is great.
Yep.
Okay, so Gabimaru's group runs into May and a tree man named Hogo. Now, at first they don't get along. They have to like fight Hogo, and they have to capture May. And she's able to hurt Gabimaru with a single punch. And he ties her up, and she starts crying. And Sagari's like, she's just a little girl. And the tree guy's like, don't hurt us. I'll take you to the village. And they're like, we don't trust you. And he's like, I'll give you information. We don't trust you. I'll give you a bath. Yuzuhara, a bath. I get a bath. deal. So they do go, and they do get to bathe. And he provides, the elixirs on the middle of the island. That's where the gods, the Tensen exist. And then there's the middle ring. That's where the villagers lived. And then there was the outer ring where all the monsters, live. So he explains that to him. May can't talk, but she has a scar that's across her back. We find out later what that is. We get a scene of Sagari running a bathhouse so that they get the bathhouse experience, which reminds Gabimaru of his wife again. And then we come.
I wanted to mention this was another scene where I was actually really impressed with the way this anime handled kids, because that is something that we complain about frequently. And I was wondering where it was going to go, because when Gabimaru comes into the bathhouse, there's May, and she's not ready for anybody to come in, right? And that's the usual tropey situation,
right?
But it wasn't sexual at all to Gabimaru. He's like, whatever, people of all ages and both sexes bathe in the same place. He just like walks right past her. And then, so that like removed all sexuality from it, which was fantastic. And then on top of that, Sagari? Is that her name?
Sagari.
I always get it wrong. Sagari. Sagari immediately is like, well, let's get some clothes on you. And then it just moved beyond it. And you never see that with anime. They always focus on this. So I just wanted to point that out and be like, good job. This was cool.
To be fair, they do then come back around and say that she was a slave for one purpose only.
You are correct about that.
Well, okay.
But she was an adult
fair,
at the
though.
time.
She was an adult at the time.
Yeah, she was older at the time.
Yeah.
Which now people are very confused if they haven't seen it. Wait, you just said she was a child. We don't know her age. She is a Tensen, and she can change age.
And we don't know if it's her doing it, or if it's triggered, or why. Yeah.
It seems to have something to do with how much Tao they use. So I'd get the impression that she just has so much Tao bottled up when she's a little girl, and then when she used some of it, she grew again. But I don't know. That doesn't really make sense. Like, how did she get it? Because if she left when she was an adult, then was she been eating people? Like, I don't know.
We go back to Tenza and Nuru, who again have been staying on the beach, and they run into their own Tensen. This is a orange marigold, maybe? I don't know.
Could be.
This one's personality is, I don't want to bother with this.
Yeah.
But it attacks them, and they end up managing to damage it. They cut, like, when I say they damage it, it's like they cut off its head and arms and completely dismember it, but it just starts regenerating back because guess what? Their head's not their weak spot. And so they run into the forest, and they run into Shion, who is the teacher of Tenza and another executioner. He was the one who had been with the courtesan, and we thought he had died, but he actually had killed her for trying to seduce him. After maybe he had a little bit of fun, but we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know when it happened.
So let's talk about.
I did like that the imagery was a little different than the story he was telling. He was like, she tried to seduce me, so I ended it. But there was a little more than seducing going on in the imagery.
Yes.
So
it seemed like there might have been a little guilt.
So let's talk about Shion. Your guys' thoughts on the blind samurai.
I am so afraid he's going to die soon. But
yeah.
I like him. This is a common samurai storyline where master loses student and is reluctant to teach again. But we don't get a lot of focus on the student, and they did a really good job with the way they structured this, and that there was this new motivation to teach, and then it goes bad. And then I ain't teaching again. And then, well, actually, I guess you are, but it's going to be field teaching. So I like the way they handled that particular storyline, because, like I said, it is a little tropey, but they did a good job with it. I also like his determination. He's got the protagonist, the shonen protagonist. I will defeat all odds, no matter what. Also, his blind jokes are great.
Yeah. A little self-deprecating humor. It always endears characters to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked Shion. He's a great character. I shouldn't say was. I don't want to start thinking that way.
He's there at the finale. We're good.
Yeah, he survived. I really like this character. Another thing that I thought called back to other, I don't know, maybe tropes that I've seen in a lot of Japanese film is the blind swordsman. Like this is a common thing you see. And so it was kind of cool that you would have this character and that he would be this powerful. Now, since we haven't really gone into it in great depth, but there is essentially a power source like ki, chi, and this power source is something that, you know, if this blind guy is like using his other senses to fight, it makes sense to me that he's tapping into this, right? As an explanation. So he was one of the characters that I thought, oh, okay, this seems more reasonable that he would be able to make use of it. Now that he knows what it is, maybe he can actually start thinking of it and like shift his paradigm, and suddenly it becomes more accessible and more useful. Something that he already knows what he's doing with. So I liked him for that reason too. And then also the way that he's really just a really nice, good guy at heart, right? And so he's like, well, what are we gonna do about your prisoner? She can't go back, and maybe we should execute her so we can go back, you know? And Tenza's like, no, wait. And he just manages to convince him pretty easily. And the teacher's like, all right, sure. I'll help you free her. I'll help you save her. So yeah, he's such a likable character, and he's so easily sympathetic. Like you were saying, Jason, that story, it's common and it's really easy to sympathize with.
Actually, that scene where he's like, hey, we need to execute your prisoner, after the flashback made a lot more sense, because Tenzo was a character who's like, why are we helping people? Well, why would we even bother? So I felt like he was testing him just to see, you got it right? Okay, he gets it right. Yeah. That's why as soon as Tenzo's like, no, I'm standing up for this. Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, that's good.
I really liked him. He's very tropey. He reminds me of like Zoro from One Piece, or any side swordsman character who just is there to have a really cool fight. He's never gonna be main character material. He's just there to be really cool. But he was, and it worked, and and the blind jokes were great. I thought he was the one who was gonna die.
Mhm.
I know the character is shown in the OP as dying. I thought it was a red herring. I thought I did not see student die, master lives on. I thought for sure it was going to be master dies, student has to down power up to master's level and carry on. So him showing up, I thought, okay, Tenza's going to make it. Oh, good. Sorry, cool blind dude, but I'm glad Tenza's going to make it. Well, he doesn't. The Tencent catches back up. He does cut Shion's throat, but then Tenza fights him and gets 4 holes punched in him instantly. One right under the throat, and then other spots. So he's got holes. This is where we start getting his whole flashback of he was he was a street rat, mugging people. The Shion took him in as a student. Eventually, and the good old Aizen gave him advice. Good old classic character Aizen, who's always been in this anime. That was weird. The thing that got me most about Tenza dying is he's like seeing a flashback of what his life would have been, and he sees himself marrying Nuru.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, anime, don't do this to me. And I still wasn't sure. I was like, maybe he can survive the 4 holes because Shion's rushing in, and maybe Shion is the one who dies. And then Shion turned around and ran away, which was Tenza's big moment. Like, my throat's been punctured, but I need to scream anyway. And he goes, blah, 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 blah.
He's like, I just need to say run, and he's oh,
But
that was a rough one.
Well, and what made it even better was the fact that Shion's throat had been partially ripped out, so he's screaming back. So you had both of them doing that. It was very guttural. Like, it really got you.
So after this, Gabimaru sneaks away in the night, and he finds the gate to the gods' village, and this same Tenzin finds him, who's coming back from this fight with Tenza, and is like, "Can you just leave, and I'll pretend I didn't find you, because it's almost the end of my turn to hunt for humans, and I want to be done." But they end up having this big, huge battle. Beautiful, we see just how powerful Gabimaru is without all the getting into the power leveling of this anime. And then the Tenzin turns into a big flower monster, and he's getting electrocuted, and he's gonna die, and Mei shows up, and she saves him with a shield, and they go tumbling down a cliff.
And then Mei ages up.
We get a scene of the Tenzin having a meeting. And they start with they're just arguing over, do you prefer the male or female form? Well, I like being in my female form. No, I like the male form. And this is when I noticed all the voice actors are the same. We need to talk about, they have 2 voice actors playing the same 7 characters, and it's amazing. Like, each one's a little bit different, but it's like, oh, that's the same voice. But then they switch to their female form, and they have to keep the same personality with a different voice actor. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Impressive, really.
Yeah, I like that. They also the orange guy that just showed back up. They start beating. One guy beats on him.
He blows his head off.
Yeah, blows his head off. You're so weak. And then the leader's like, only I get to do that. But the orange is like all withered and brown because needs to drink. And then they all drink their elixir, and yeah, all good now. This is better than the scene where we see them all in the same room without any clothes on later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. Not sure they needed to show that, but
this is also where we learn that they're the same hermit who split himself into 7 people, and then the tree guy explains that all the villagers have become tree people, which we saw a bunch of trees praying to the center of the island. because then they lose their consciousness. The last thing they do is they go and pray, hoping that their spirit will get into heaven. And when the bad guy shows up and he's like, we just told him that. Isn't that great? That's just a story we made up. Wow.
Right.
All right. Oh, Tamiya is back. Tamiya and Fucha find Gabimaru. And so we get a couple of different scenes. It's Aza and Toma. They climb out of the pit that they were thrown in by the blonde Tenzin, and they meet this like priest guy who serves the Tenzin. He's actually a plant guy. Same thing's happening to Gabimaru and Tamiya, who have decided to join forces after should we fight each other, and like doing the imaginary fights. And Fuchi's like, that's dumb. That doesn't even count. It doesn't matter. That's not how science works, guys. Yeah. I like that. I like that color. But basically, everyone starts learning about Tau. This is episode 10, and the anime has decided to tell us how their power system works in their show and anime. And it's the energy between the yin and the yang. It's all about the middle way. And like I said, when it just hit me like, oh, that's why everything they've been doing makes sense now. This was
actually the way they described it, I was like, oh, is this Star Wars?
The dark and light.
No.
It's the energy
Tau
light
flows
force
through everything.
Yeah.
Oh, the force.
The power of the universe.
I would take this over Star Wars.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. All right, so Aza becomes very proficient in it, but because we already talked about it, he's growing, like something's growing inside of him. So
I mean, it's literally one fight, and this monster guy is like, he's barely got any. And so he starts fighting with him, and then he looks again. Oh, he's got more now, but it's still nothing to be worried about. And then a few seconds later, oh crap, I'm dead.
He had a bag of sensu beans.
Exactly.
Yes. I worry about you and this power system, Jeremy, because it is very much, oh, he's weak. Oh, nope, never mind, super strong. He suddenly found his centralization. But it happens later to Sagari, too. And Gabimaru. Yeah, they're super weak, and then suddenly, they found their center, and suddenly their Tau just erupts, and there's not going to be a number system here. It's going to be, I feel strong.
Yeah, see, that's the one criticism that I have for it, but I think they put in some checks and balances for that, some consequences. They're hinting at it for this guy, Aza, and then they also come right out with it for Gabimaru. So it seems like something where, sure, maybe you can have this extreme burst of power if you figure it out, you adapt to it, or in Gabimaru's case, you reframe your perspective and Shion. But people are vomiting blood. To me, vomiting blood doesn't even seem like an issue anymore. Like, that's just anime 101. Like, if you're in a fight, you're going to just barf blood at some point.
Yeah, the amount of blood loss that happens between these characters and just no consequences is amazing.
Yeah, we'll just put some bandages on you after the fight. You'll be fine.
Just take a bath. It'll be good.
It's like in Baldur's Gate. You just create water around yourself and you're clean. You're no longer bloody from combat. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Okay. So,
moving on.
Aza defeats his Doshi. Doshi's the name of those priest guys.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Gabimaru and Tamiya are fighting theirs, and Mei is trying to train them in using Tau. And Tamiya's like, be strong, smack, smack, smack. She's like, no, strong, weak, strong, weak. I don't get it. Strong, strong, strong.
That was really good.
But two Doshi show up there, and they're like, oh, it's Mei. We've been looking for Mei. We need Mei. She's one of us. She was given, and they talk about how, like, for the different levels of Tau, there's different ways of training it, but one of the levels is sex. And the Tenzin, because they can have both forms, they can naturally do that. But we needed a female, so they gave us Mei. And they marked her. And Gabimaru
she doesn't have a male form.
She doesn't have a male form, right? So and neither do the Doshi don't have a female form, so they use Mei to achieve training. You guys, remember when I said I have a great joke.
There's a ton. Okay, but there's what makes it worse is like there's a bunch of these guys and one of her, and it pisses off Gabimaru and the other guy.
And Tamiya. Yeah.
You guys remember in Jujutsu Kaisen where watching movies made you stronger, and I said that was my favorite way to train in a power system?
You found a new favorite.
Number 2 now.
Yes.
That was worth the wait.
Yep. Totally. I wrote that joke 3 days ago. All right. Gabimaru is shown how to sense Tau by May. He's able to defeat both these guys super easily, except for then he passes out. Then we get
It was barely an inconvenience.
Super easy.
Sagari's group reaches the gate, and the dark pink, not the bright pink, the dark pink Tenzin. He has a name. It's Mudan. But anyway, he shows up, and he's the one who's like, oh yeah, the tree people, that was all a lie. And he explains this whole place is a science experiment.
This isn't heaven.
Yeah, this isn't heaven.
Yeah.
We're just alternate. And I think earlier Senta had thought, like, was there a guy back on the mainland who was mixing the two religions to form a group? Yeah. And so he's suspicious that that's what's going on here. But yeah, so this pink guy's like, yeah, we're experimenting, and I'm super excited to see what you guys produce. So come inside with me. They're like, okay, we're going to fight. So Yuzuhara, Senta, and Sagari all fight. Sagari is able to actually hurt him without him being able to heal from it because her Tau is the opposite of his Tau.
Now that I can't explain. I have no idea. That is a facet that, at least from my understanding of like the Taoist philosophy of what they're doing here, is outside of that.
Yeah, but they said specifically like she was like anti-Tau, like she was poisoning him when she cut him.
Yeah, but there should only be yin and yang. So like having a variation of a different kind of yin and yang, that's extra, which would be cool. Like if they want to do that, I think that's a great way to build on the power system. But it's definitely beyond the Taoist origin of their.
As long as they don't go too Pokemon of like, oh, you're a fire type, I have to, I automatically lose.
Yeah, there's that danger.
Anyway, they defeat him, and they also learn, hey, you have to cut him in the navel because that's the center of the yin and yang Tao system. So they do, and then they take a rest, and Sentos gives us his nice soft backstory about how he admires Yuzuhara.
I was so upset at this whole scene. I'm like, what? This guy's been regenerating for how long? And you cut him down once, and you're like, oh, okay, we can ignore him now. It's like,
chop him.
What's happening?
Chop him up.
Yes. Double tap time.
Like, right?
Yes.
Nobody thinks, oh, maybe we should check on the immortal being we think we killed.
Yep. I totally was right there with you.
Okay.
It couldn't be this easy.
He comes back. He
regenerates.
He starts turning into a monster, and he shoots a tentacle at Yuzuhara. Senta jumps in the way, gets stabbed, and it shows him like watching her and drawing her, but really flowers are blooming out of his eyes. But they're saved by Shion, and Nuru is also with him, and he takes on the monster, and then Sagari and Nuru, Nuru has the power of healing hugs.
Yeah,
it's her Tau.
Yep.
It doesn't heal it. It like charges their Tau.
Yep.
Yeah.
And hugs aren't important, but she does like the hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, it's just a touch will suffice.
Also, the funniest scene. This isn't really a funny anime, but this scene made me laugh out loud so much that it woke people in my house up. Yuzuhara is putting her poison goo on them, and she's licking Sagari's arm, and Sagari's like, is it necessary to lick me? And she goes, not at all. that was a good random line.
Yep.
The three battle. The two girls manage to pin the arms down, and he goes to cut the abdomens because when they're in the flower form, they have both the male and female bodies sticking out. But Senta, who's still alive, yells out, "No, not that abdomen! It's a flower now. You have to hit it in the flower abdomen."
Mm-hmm.
And when he does, it's full of heads, full of the guys' heads. and the guy's like, oh, I get to die. That's going to be so cool. And he's like, he died. Again, perverse is the word that describes these villains. Like, everything about them is just not comfortable with you.
Yep.
You can't live near a school.
Exactly.
Or society in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's best during her Flower Island. So they kill him. And then, yeah, they have enough. They have 2 healing things. And Yuzuhara's like, well, I'm keeping one for me. And I could help Senta, but then we'd have to carry him around. It would only help him a little bit. Or I can use it on the blind guy, who would then be back to full fighting form. So she just comforts Senta as he dies, and he dies in her arms, happy. Also, I want to call out the great part where Shion started blossoming flowers from his body from little cuts, and then he just starts chopping the flowers out, which also happened in that book about the vines, and that was really creepy.
Did the guy in the book also like rip one out with his teeth?
No, he flayed himself alive. He died.
Oh.
Oh, okay, good.
What book is this? I don't think I want to read it.
It's
Sounds
called
interesting.
It was called Ruin, and it was really good and creepy.
Okay.
Or Ruins. It's Ruin or Ruins. Just look for the
Okay.
one about
Maybe
or
both.
vine.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's a sequel.
Okay, then after they beat him, they go into a tower, a building to rest. And Shion is talking about like, yeah, using Tao can be dangerous. And Yuzuhara's like, it's weird that Gabimaru has a wife. She points because Gabimaru's like, yeah, I saw my chief get stabbed a bunch of times, and so I know he's immortal. So the elixir of life is real. This pink guy just told him it's not, and they're like, yeah, well, in my village, the chief pretends to get stabbed. It's an illusion to make kids think he's invincible, so they'll never challenge him. Also, assassins don't get wives. That's weird. So now Sagari's like, I don't know if any of that was real. Gabimaru now has amnesia from overusing his Tao.
Mm-hmm.
The Tao,
was
the Tao is missing from his head. Is how they showed it.
I did love this idea of like, is the chief saw him start to gain some humanity, so to continue controlling him, trick him into thinking he was married to a non-existent wife. That blew my mind. I was like, wait a second, because there's so many up to this point, there's so many inconsistent stories and unreliable narrators. I was like, that is totally possible, and I love this idea.
Yeah, same here. And like in the outro, there's actually some superimposition of Sagari and his wife, where they're like saying, okay, so is she going to fill the role of this non-existent person at some point, you know? And so that's really cool as well. And what that does for his character, like there were moments in the early part of it where I was like, okay, yeah, we get it. You really want to go home to your wife. It doesn't have to be your battle cry. I'm going to go home to my wife. Like every time he gets in a fight or needs to yell about his motivation, he's like, I gotta go to my wife. And so now that made that so memorable that when they brought this up and we're like, yeah, no, she may not exist. I was like, oh, all those times, like this is such a motivation for him. It makes perfect sense that they would use this, because what else are you going to send your assassin out there? Like, what is it? Is it payment? Is it loyalty? Like, what is the motivation for him to go and do this thing that takes away your humanity? It like robs you of it, turns you hollow. It also means that his name being the Hollow has an application here too. If his own history and wife isn't real, what is he? Like, how is he going to deal with that when he starts to realize it?
Now here's a theory based off that and what we talked about earlier. He comes to the realization that she isn't real.
Yeah.
Falls for Sagari, and then she dies.
Yeah, that would be good.
I am really enjoying that there's not a ship between those two. I as
But
much as I'm the shipping guy, I get it, but I do enjoy when a guy and a girl can just be partners or friends, and like we don't have to bring them together. So I actually was super excited that he had a wife and that there wasn't going to be a romantic angle between these two characters. It was just two warriors respecting each other. So I don't like that. Also, I don't want to burst theory bubbles, but in the first episode,
no.
didn't Sagari say, "I confirmed your wife is waiting for you"?
Yeah, but did she
You
confirm it with
did,
the guy that's like
but-
doing the illusion?
I don't know. She didn't go into details.
Yeah,
she's
she
the one
didn't say that
questioning it.
she. Yeah, she didn't say that she went to confirm it. She's maybe that's what she was told.
Yeah. I
Right.
bet the village elder was like, "Oh yeah, no, my daughter's real."
I'll bet the wife is real. That's where I'd put my money.
There was another shot where it showed, like, when he was trying to remember, it showed his wife's mouth, and she got one of those canonically evil anime smiles. And so I was like, okay, so does she really exist, but she's not at all like what he's remembering her to be like?
Mm.
But then also the question comes up, where is he getting all these memories of her trying to tell him, say thank you and killing's bad?
Yeah.
And, if
Right,
she's not
who's
really
that
like that,
benefiting?
who put that in his head? I wonder if that's just how he's coping, right? So his parents were killed because they had a baby and wanted to leave. They didn't want to be assassins anymore.
Right.
So they were killed. So that means in his bloodline, if we're going to say that his personality is influenced by his bloodline, then maybe that's the part of his mind that's subconsciously mixing with the illusion to justify things he's not allowed to think. They still find a way in through the illusion.
I'll just say it's bizarre if they are going to do his memories were false and we gave him amnesia at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't like this amnesia angle. I think it's weird and out of left field. He didn't even hit his head, so I don't know. I don't think it fits.
He hit his towel.
Yeah.
He got hit right in the towels, man.
Right in the towel.
I'm gonna kick you in the towel.
I agree with you that it creates a really weird situation that feels a little bit cheap. It's almost like, okay, let's retread territory we've already gone through, because now he's got to, how do we get him back to the point where he's protecting May and back to the point where he's protecting Sagari? Now all he's thinking about is, well, if I need to, I can kill all three of these people by the campfire and be out before anything, And so, like, it does feel cheap because it feels like a way to say, I don't have as much story to tell going forward, so let's rewind a little bit and retell this story.
I'm more okay with the amnesia than the fake wife angle. And again, it's just
Really?
It's weird that the moment he can't remember his wife, they're questioning if the wife even exists. It's bizarre to do both at the same time.
I would say that's just good storytelling. Like, I mean, isn't that like that's the fade too, right? Like,
Wait,
if you have,
but
like,
so
we're gonna talk about the bad guy, and then all of a sudden it cuts to a guy, and you're like, oh, I guess that's the bad guy. That's just communicating to the audience.
So what's the resolution? He gets his fake memories back, and then has to realize they are fake memories.
I think they're gone. I think the memories of his wife are going to be gone. Because when in his memories, what it showed is that he was sitting there trying to remember that, and he saw a flash of his wife touching his hand, but nobody was there. To me, that says, oh, okay, so it was an illusion, and the illusion has been dispelled, like he purified his mind with Tao.
But the implication is that he's missing the top half of his head in the Tao, and that if he gets that back, his memories will come back. At least that's the implication I got.
He just needs a Tao hug.
Yeah, probably.
A hug? Huh?
No.
No.
Now you sound like a tension. All right, we need to wrap up. Guys, final reviews. Jeremy, you go. What do you think?
Absolutely loved it. I want to see more. 5 out of 5. Fantastic.
All right, Jason?
Great storytelling, wonderful monsters, great location, fire OP. 5 out of 5 for me. This I want season 2 right now.
I felt like a 4 most of the way, but it is a 5. It's a 5 just because of how entertained I was. and how much I want to keep going. So the island alone makes it a 5. We'll give it that. All right, our next anime is The Dangers in My Heart, if you missed that announcement. And if you would like to let us know what you think of Hell's Paradise, you can reach us on our Twitter account at Baka Podcast. Our
X?
Nope. The website, theanimebakaclub.com. You can leave a comment section or comment there, or leave a comment where you found the podcast. Look, man, if you change Captain Crunch to Admiral Crunchy, I'm calling it Captain Crunch still, okay? It is what I know it as.
What I love is the fact that it's still at the same domain. It's still at twitter.com. That just cracks me up because
Yeah.
like everything is invested in that domain. If you change that domain, that's going to have a totally different effect.
Look, I'm gonna call it Twitter. No one's wondering what I mean, okay? So we're fine. You can call it X if you
Previously
want.
known as Twitter.
Everyone can call it what they want. I'm choosing my choice. All right, let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
My wife.
Sayonara.